You think I'll let you zone?
Baka.
I thought of trying something different on this channel, like doing lore videos on some of the things that interest me, and one of the things that does is the Eminence and Shadow IP. That is a successful light novel series with 6 volumes currently, and volume 5 getting an English release at the end of July at the time of this recording. It also has a successful anime series with a movie currently in production. Now you may be wondering, if you don't know anything about this series, is what the hell is it about? It's about a tuning named Minoru Kageno, who wanted to follow his dreams and be an Eminence and Shadow, or a shadow broker of sorts, on Earth, as he trained and mastered many fighting styles effectively and efficiently. But what he really wanted was power. To Minoru, in becoming a shadow broker, he needed the power to rival and surpass a nuke, but the only way to do that was through magic. But sadly, Earth didn't have any actual magic. Fortunately for him, he was hit by a vehicle and teleported to another world where he still had his memories, and the fantasy world plays out like manga stereotypes that he knows what's going to happen most of the time. In this world there is magic, and his new name is Sid Kageno, the son of a lower noble. Sid doesn't want to stand out, so he plays at being mediocre so no one would suspect him of being the ultra powerful shadow and head of Shadow Garden. This video isn't so much about Sid, but the first seat of Shadow Garden, Alpha, with her history, because not many videos cover that. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the lore of Alpha, First of the Shades. So far in the Eminence and Shadow, there are 3 canon races: humans, elves, and beastkin. Since we're talking about Alpha, it's mostly elf specific, like elves do not like to mingle much with the other races, preferring to live with their own kind in forests, be it in an actual kingdom or villages. There are dark elves, as Shadow Garden has a few of them, and there are hybrids among the races, with Omega being a half dark elf. Now for Alpha, not much is known about her early life, but what she did share was that she was of high standing in her village, as she had access to the best teachers and knowledge the elves had to offer. She also knew of Beta back then, but they weren't really friends, as they were in the same social circles. But everything changed when she became a possessed. Friends and family treated her like trash, and her family exiled her, and as the possession got worse, she was captured by bandits. She was basically a giant meatball in a cage at that point, waiting for death, but luck found Alpha when a person passed by raiding bandits: Sid. Sid took Alpha and experimented on her for a month, injecting her with his magic until one day he accidentally cured the elf. Sid, wanting a minion and a friend to LARP Shadow Broker with, lied to the Alpha about the cause of demonic possession, being a descendant of a hero, and the cult of Diablos, then giving her a new name, Alpha. Alpha, being the same age as Sid at the time, was being looked after by her new friend and master. Sid taught her things and showed her wisdom beyond anything that the elves had ever taught her, wanting to be useful to Sid because the only thing she was commanded to do is to not get in the way and take out the grunts while Sid beats the boss. After a while, Alpha decided that the two of them wouldn't be enough to take out the cult, with Sid thinking that he was just fine with just Alpha. Alpha would lead Sid into recruiting the other 6 and establish Shadow Garden. If you want to know the power level tiers of the Shades, then at the top it's technically Alpha because of her naturally vast mana pool, and her perfectionist attitude to be the perfect woman for Sid has made Alpha a very powerful all-arounder. Next is Delta, as she specializes in fighting and is the fastest plus physically strongest among the Shades, able to shoot concussive air blasts just by punching because Sid taught her how to lift weights to get stronger, which she does every single day. Alpha admits that Delta is stronger than her, but she's too predictable with her thought process that if you are similar in strength and speed, you can win, as Delta can't really think outside the box on how to use her magic because it usually just ends with her hitting the target really hard with more magic. Then there's Zeta, who is a genius and praised by Sid, stating that Zeta could be the strongest among them because she has the talent for it. But the thing holding her back is that since she is a genius, she gets bored really easily when something is too easy, or when something is too hard, she doesn't want to do it anymore. She's the type of genius who would get the basics down and never perfect them because it got boring after a while. Then you have the mid tiers of Beta and Epsilon, which Beta edges out Epsilon because she is a better support to the other Shades than Epsilon, but oddly enough, the pair that work the best together on missions are these two when they're not trying to one-up each other. Then we have low tiers on a technicality because Gamma and Eta have quirks that prevent them from being stronger. But don't get it twisted, as compared to regular troops and Dark Knights, they are still monsters, but comparing the Shades to themselves, they are the weakest. Gamma has insane stats stated by Sid, and would be in the upper tier with her mana alone. What is stopping her is her clumsiness. She has no athletic ability whatsoever, meaning Sid couldn't teach her anything because she'd always mess something up or just trip over her own feet. It got so bad that everyone is afraid of Gamma when she wants to fight because of the friendly fire and the amount of collateral damage she causes trying to kill one target. On the flip side, her defensive magic is insane as she can take the most hits from weapons with little to no damage or lumps. She was usually Delta's training partner because she could withstand her attacks. If Gamma wasn't so handicapped, she'd be a problem even for Delta, and that's why she has subordinates to guard and attack for her because Shadow Garden really doesn't want her to fight. Then we have Ada, who is the smartest among the shades. She is able to create anything Sid gives a vague description of. Ada is weak because of her condition, and she dislikes having to use her body, so she doesn't train as much as the others, preferring to use long-range attacks with slime and outsmarting her opponent. She'd be one of the more stronger shades if she didn't prefer to stay inside and work on her experiments all the time. Alpha has taught or refined Sid's main sword style to be easier to understand and grasp when teaching the basic Shadow Garden members, but the only ones to have mastered Sid's style are Alpha and Beta, as the rest of the shades couldn't do it with their quirks, and they decided to use their own weapons that they preferred, and Alpha's is a sword. When Alpha isn't running Shadow Garden, she's trained to be the perfect partner / woman for Sid, as she is constantly trying to get stronger in any way by studying Sid's shadow wisdom regarding other areas of expertise, like literature and information with Beta, finances and commerce with Gamma, culture and arts with Epsilon to better understand high society interactions to best integrate with targets, and also mathematics and science with Ada. She also oversees bodyguard duty over Sid, as she can't do it being busy all the time running the organization. She assigns Beta and lower numbers to watch over him and give reports on what he's doing or going. She does visit when she can, as Sid is the only one Alpha can be herself around. When it's just the two of them, Alpha can just be a girl and not a leader. You can see this when they were younger, as she was a bit more expressive to Sid than they currently are. Alpha, for as young as she is, had to take the mother role of the shades to help the other girls when Sid couldn't. Alpha sees the other shades as her sisters and family, as her dream is to get rid of the cult and retire with Sid somewhere that has a big tree. Any of the shades are welcome to live with them as well. As for Shadow Garden, others can take over or let it crumble for all she cares, because in reality, without Gamma and Ada, Shadow Garden and their shell company would stagnate and decline. Alpha also has trouble understanding feminine social cues to an extent that this is a side effect from being raised by Sid for a bit, where we see compared to the other shades, she isn't that particularly unique about what she wears, preferring comfortable and easy use than worrying about if something looks good. An example of this is excluding Delta and Zeta. The elf girls each have a unique taste about what type of underwear they like to wear, but with Alpha, she just gets the same sports bra and sports shorts to wear. As Gamma comments on this, it's not that those items are not quality, just that they're kind of boring. Alpha apologizes and said that she doesn't know much about these things since she was a meatball for a while before Sid, and would be happy to wear anything Gamma suggested. Alpha, being the first and knowing Sid the longest, is seen as having the privilege to talk to Sid as an equal without any honorifics, saying Shadow or Sid when it's not important business to be talked about. The other members of Shadow Garden comment that Shadow and Alpha's relationship doesn't look like one of a master and servant, but that of lovers or a married couple, which Alpha knows that the other shades are jealous of. Speaking of jealousy, it wasn't known early on in the light novels if Alpha loved Sid or had adoration for him, but with the later volumes and the Japanese voice actors confirming that with what she was given, Alpha is deeply in love with Sid. Alpha doesn't show it much, but she's overprotective of Sid when it comes to random women, that if it's not one of the shades looking for his attention. For example, in the 8th episode of season 2, when New suggested that she be one of those chosen to have a group date with Sid, Alpha tried to intimidate New into backing down by saying Sid obviously wanted to go on a pool date with her, but when the other shades chimed in, she decided to play fair and do rock, paper, scissors for the opportunity. Though since she's the leader, obvious provocative outfits are prohibited in her presence, not just because she doesn't like them that much, but because she doesn't want any of the other shades to get Sid's attention more than her. It's when Ada revealed a new slime suit that could change color or go translucent, which got Zeta and Epsilon interested. She shut down Ada's attempt at attracting her master. She even said no to string bikinis. Lastly, I want to talk about what hero Alpha is descended from and what we know about her actual family. Like in the light novel and in season 1, it is revealed that Alpha is a direct descendant of the elf hero Olivier, with the Eminence and Shadow Master of Garden gacha game that has canon stories to the light novel series, had a recent Apocrypha event that we learned there were more heroes and most of the girls weren't distant cousins. Namely, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, and Eta had a direct ancestor hero, but that left Victoria without one, so she might be distantly related to one of the shades. Sid and Claire aren't related to Alexia, as they have a human hero ancestor that looks like Claire. But back to Alpha, as she does have a family that is searching for her in Beatrix. She is searching for her niece who looks just like her for some reason and came to Midgar because of sightings of a blonde elf who looks just like her have been popping up in the human city. Alpha in the game has stated that she does not care about her former family anymore and doesn't want to talk about it because Sid and the Shades are her new family now. One of Alpha's fears, besides being cast away by Sid for being useless, is outliving him, as Sid is human, but elves in the Eminence and Shadow have an average lifespan about 300 years with no outside factors. When they were younger, Alpha asked how long Sid would live for, and he replied at his current level with magic, 200 years. Alpha didn't like the answer and asked could he extend it by 100 more, as 200 is short for an elf. Currently, Sid can live to be 600 years old on his magic alone, so Alpha doesn't have to worry about outliving him. As for how powerful Alpha is, if you use Victoria as a base, because she could fight for 3 days straight and almost wipe a group of first children who were worth whole armies of regular troops, that is with limited training, not from Sid directly, she and the Shades could take over a regular kingdom with just the 7 of them no problem in a few days. Alpha could be the closest to replicating I Am Atomic, but none of them can because they don't know how the spell works, in quotation marks here, and it's dangerous to try. But the attack Alpha did to an out of control Milia was supposedly called Magic Download, her version of Sid's spell, but I couldn't find any information anywhere if this is actually true. That should do it for a basic rundown of who is Alpha the First, who is seen as this perfect person by everyone including Sid. I might do this for the rest of Shadow Garden if I have the time or people want to actually see it. With that said, stay gold and I'll see you guys in the next video.